You block someone on your phone. You mute a group chat. You walk the long way around the office to avoid a coworker. It feels small. It feels modern. It is not. Because underneath that tiny act of avoidance sits one of the oldest survival strategies your species ever developed. For most of human history, dealing with an enemy wasn't a matter of etiquette. It was a matter of life and death. And the way your ancestors handled conflict still shapes the way your brain handles it today. Think about the last time someone wronged you. Your heart rate spiked. Your thoughts looped. You replayed the moment over and over, searching for what you should have said. That response feels personal. It isn't. It's ancient hardware running a program written tens of thousands of years before you were born. For a long time, anthropologists assumed early humans were mostly peaceful. Small bands, scattered resources, nothing worth fighting over. But the evidence tells a Messier story. The real answer is far stranger than peace or war. It's something in between, something your body still remembers. Start with the obvious question. What did ancient humans actually do when they had an enemy? The anthropologist Napoleon Chagnon spent years living among the Yanomam, a society in the Amazon basin, studying how conflict actually played out in small-scale societies. What he documented wasn't constant chaos. It was something more calculated, alliances, grudges tracked over years, revenge taken generations later. Violence was real, but it was rarely random. It followed rules. Unspoken ones, but rules nonetheless. Here's the part that surprises people. Ancient conflict wasn't mainly about killing. It was about managing relationships in a world where you could not simply walk away. Picture a band of 30 people. No cities, no strangers passing through. No new friend group to join if this one turned on you. Your enemy today might be the only person who knows where the water is during a drought next year. You couldn't cancel him. You couldn't move to another building in the company. You were stuck. Evolution had to solve a strange problem. How do you survive next to someone you can't stand when leaving isn't an option? The archaeologist Stephen LeBlanc, who spent decades examining prehistoric skeletal remains and settlement patterns, found that warfare and violence show up again and again across the archaeological record, far more than the peaceful ancestor myth suggests. Skull fractures, defensive village walls, weapon wounds healed over, meaning the person survived the first attack only to face another later. Conflict was common, but so was something else. Reconciliation. This is where it gets interesting. Your ancestors didn't just fight. They built elaborate systems to prevent fighting from spiraling out of control. The primatologist Christopher Boehm studied something he called reverse dominance hierarchies. In many hunter-gatherer societies, when one person became too aggressive, too controlling, too much of a threat to the group, the rest of the band didn't scatter. They organized. Gossip first. Public shaming next. Ostracism after that. And only in the most extreme cases, execution, carried out collectively, so no single person bore the blame or the risk of revenge. Sit with that for a second. Long before courts, long before prisons, long before laws written on paper, humans had already built a justice system. It ran entirely on relationships, reputation, and group pressure. And it worked well enough to keep small societies functioning for tens of thousands of years. This is why gossip feels so satisfying. Why you can't resist checking what people are saying about someone who wronged you. That pull isn't gossip for its own sake. It's an ancient monitoring system. Your brain evolved to track who is trustworthy and who is dangerous. Because in a world with nowhere to hide, that information could save your life. Now here's the twist. Your enemy in ancient life was rarely a stranger. Modern movies love the outsider villain, the raiding tribe, the faceless invader. But the data tells a different story. Most violence in small-scale societies happened between people who already knew each other, neighbors, in-laws, former friends. The primatologist Richard Wrangham, who has spent his career comparing human aggression to that of chimpanzees, argues that humans evolved a strange dual nature, extremely low rates of impulsive violence in daily life, paired with a unique capacity for premeditated, coalition-based aggression when conflict does erupt, calm most days, capable of coordinated brutality on the rare day it mattered. Why does this matter to you right now in a world with police and courts and phones that can call for help in seconds? Because your nervous system doesn't know any of that change. It still runs the old software. When someone betrays you, your body still floods with the same chemical alarm your ancestors felt when a rival threatened the band's water source. Your obsessive replaying of an argument isn't weakness. It's an ancient threat assessment loop, checking and rechecking whether this person is safe to be near again. That's also why exclusion hurts so much. Being ignored, being left out of the group chat, being the last one to know about the party. It registers in the brain alongside physical pain because for most of human history, exclusion from the group wasn't a social inconvenience. It was often a death sentence. No group meant no protection, no shared food, no one to help you through winter. Your ancestors who felt that pain most intensely were the ones who worked hardest to stay in the group. And here you are, generations later, still wired to feel it just as sharply over something as small as being left off a group text dot. So what actually happened when ancient humans faced an enemy they couldn't simply eliminate? Often, they built off-ramps, peace ceremonies, gift exchanges, arranged marriages between rival groups, deliberately designed to turn enemies into extended family, because family was much harder to kill. Anthropologists have documented these patterns across hunter-gatherer and small-scale societies worldwide. A recurring solution to the same brutal math: conflict is expensive, and if you can't destroy your enemy, your best move is to make them kin. Modern life removed the water shortage and the shared cave. But it kept the wiring. That's why forgiveness feels so hard, even over things that rationally don't threaten your survival at all. Your brain doesn't grade conflicts on a modern scale. It grades them on an ancient one, where every unresolved grudge was a live risk. And it's why revenge feels so good in the moment and so hollow afterward. Ancient revenge wasn't really about the emotional satisfaction. It was a deterrent signal, a costly message to the rest of the group. Harming me carries a price. The emotional high you feel imagining payback is your brain rehearsing that old signal. Even when there's no group watching, no reputation at stake, no real threat to deter, here's the modern mirror. You still track your enemies the way your ancestors tracked theirs. You remember the exact words. You notice when they succeed, when they fail, when their name comes up in conversation. Not because you're petty, because somewhere in your circuitry, a system built for a 30-person band is still running full-time surveillance on people who, in truth, can no longer touch your survival at all. So the next time you feel that jolt of anger at someone who crossed you, or the odd relief of hearing they're doing worse than you are, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a personality flaw. Not proof that you're a bad person. A 40,000-year-old alarm system still faithfully doing its job. In a world it was never designed for. You block someone on your phone. You mute the group chat. It feels small. It feels modern. But it's the newest version of the oldest tool your species ever built. A way to survive the people you couldn't simply walk away from.